Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Down Under Bunker here in Sydney, Australia. Today I'm going to be playing a game of D-Day. D-Day. Should be a good one. I'm playing with just the regular cards. There are no tactic or fortune cards this time. Might play another game with that. Have the reinforcement chart set up, ready to go. See if the British can take Caen and the Americans Cherbourg, and then can they converge on Saint-Lô, or can the Germans somehow hold out? In my games, it's usually a 50-50 balance, I find, between Americans and British winning and the Germans winning. Cherbourg and Caen usually get taken, but sometimes it comes down to the last round and final roll for Saint-Lô. So if that happens, I'll definitely show you that. But find out what happens after round one. See if the Americans can get a good start on Omaha Beach, or will they just get absolutely clogged there as well. Find out right after this. So it's the end of the first round out of 10 rounds, and not sure how it went in terms of usual games. I think probably the Allies just have a little bit of a head start, but we'll take you through the rounds. Started with the airborne attacks, and the Americans here got one hit, but in the regular battle they got the second hit, so that's why they're just there. The British didn't have good success with their airborne, but then they came in off the landings and came and took out everything that was there, same on Juno Beach and Gold Beach, so the British are looking good and Caen is under big threat. On Omaha, the Germans did really well there, taking out 6 infantry, American infantry, and I think only losing one or two. Utah Beach, the Americans took that with ease, as they usually do, but then the Germans have made a big stack of stuff there, mostly just infantry, but still can cause some damage. The Americans might have to put more reinforcements in there. Oh, and I forgot to move the turn up there. There we go. This is the dead pile from round one. Not that much. Usually, once you get into like round 3 and 4, then it really starts to pick up. For the reinforcements, the Germans only rolled a 4 for Rennes and Chartres. So that means 3 tanks and an infantry, which exposes them to bombing runs from the Allies. Oh yeah, and on the bombing runs, the Americans came and took that tank out that was there, and the British came and took out a tank that was in there somewhere. The Allies also put their fighters in here and here, and also these two, so that any German reinforcements there would get strafed, because the Germans start with 5 tanks coming in there, so it's a bit of a dead zone if they decide to go in there, which they have to, I guess. This is exposed to bombing runs now, not so good for Germans. They originally had 3 tanks in there and 2 tanks in there, but 2 tanks got shot down by the strafing. But good news for the Germans, the British have lost a fighter, so that just gives them something to be happy about this turn. Overall, I think, the Allies are probably winning, but the Germans, once they start bringing in all those tank reinforcements, well, most of them are in, but there are still lots to come. And since they defend on 3s as well, they're real powerful. So find out what happens after round 2, and if the Germans can push back maybe up here and protect Cherbourg for a little while. Alrighty, it's the end of the second round, and here's the dead pile. It's not that much yet, been a pretty quiet round. Take you through what happens here quickly. The Germans weren't able to move this massive force because the Americans stuck 4 fighters in there, and they weren't going to risk losing probably half of those units to do an attack on there or back up somewhere else. They also weren't able to move these units because the British stuck 3 fighters on there, but they were able to get those up and reinforce Omaha Beach, which is now empty of American troops. The Americans had to attack, didn't have the units for it. The Germans rolled, got 4 hits out of 7 units, I think, and that was them gone. The British just kind of stayed there, just waiting, I guess, getting more tanks from the reinforcements, and then pushing into Caen, taking it last turn, but then the Germans came in and counter-attacked into there. Didn't have good rolls, so the British will probably bring another tank, more artillery in there, and the Germans could lose 3 more tanks, which is not good for them. The bombardments against the blockhouses is almost done. There's just that one left and all the ones up here. Only the ones in Cherbourg really matter. The other ones, well, especially these 3, never get used. Still got all the planes. The Allies still have all the planes. Reinforcements. The Americans have had great rolls. In 2 rounds, they've finished 3 lines of reinforcements. So I think they've got maybe 9 both rounds, which is very good. The British had a good roll this round as well, getting a lot of units out onto the board. The Germans on the left side here have only got 4 each round. On the right side have been getting a bit more, but they don't actually have that much left on here, although they've got a lot left there to protect Saint-Lô from any Allied attacks that might come soon. I think that's about it. So we'll see you after round 3 and see if the Germans can start counter-attacking into Caen and taking out some Americans. The pile continues to grow after the completion of turn 3, moving on to turn 4 in this game of D-Day Axis and Allies. A bit interesting round. I think maybe the Germans have had a bit of fortune in their way, going their way, but I think it's still leaning towards the Allies maybe a little bit. I'll take you through what happened though. The Americans put all 4 planes there, but then the Germans just decided to go for it because they need to defend Cherbourg, and attacking with all those infantry would just get them killed anyway, so they moved into there, losing a tank and I think a couple of infantry along the way, and maybe in the artillery as well. The Americans now just sending up stuff there, and they'll probably only send that much, maybe just a little bit in case Cherbourg doesn't go their way, but they've got lots of time on their hands for that. On Omaha Beach, the Germans have definitely had it their way. I don't think they lost, maybe they lost 2 infantry this round, and the Americans lost all 8 units that were there. And so the Americans are hurting a little bit, especially with only that much stuff on their reinforcement chart. The British don't have much either, but the Germans on the left have quite a bit, but not on the right, just a tiny bit there. The Germans took a risk and put all 4 tanks in the one zone, but they've defended it with 3 artillery, so maybe the Allies can think about strafing there with their fighters, but the likelihood of one getting shot down is pretty high. In Caen, the British couldn't do much damage to the tanks. I think only 1 tank was lost for the Germans, and then they just came in and reinforced it. But the British also have a lot there, and they're sending some units this way to put pressure on Saint-Lô, because they could just sneak in there, and the Americans taking Cherbourg and they also have Caen, then they could just win. But they might have to help out the Americans on Omaha Beach, because they just keep on losing units there otherwise. It's not good for them, but I think the British are doing quite well, and considering the Germans don't have that many reinforcements that could go that way now, I think this is in favour of the Allies. But we'll continue to play and find out what happens after round 4. We're almost halfway through the game already. See you then. It's the end of round 4 and now this game is probably evenly balanced. A turn that's been predominantly good for the Germans. Take you through what had happened. Up north near Cherbourg, the Americans are probably going to take that this turn or next turn. So that's under control. The naval bombardment's getting the 2 hits on the blockhouses and just leaving all of that. Having to put units there because they can't have more than 8 units in the territory in this game. But the Germans just keep on pushing back the Allies in Omaha Beach. Even with the British reinforcements, the Germans still there. They lost only 2 units that round and I think destroyed 4, I think, yep. The Germans have got so many units down here now. The British and Americans continue to strafe units around here. The Americans did bring their fighters into there to stop the German tanks, but it didn't really matter because Caen is not looking good for the British now. They don't have many reinforcements left over here, as you can see, and the Americans don't have much left either. But yeah, the British just cannot continue to lose units like they are. And with the Germans potentially putting a few tanks down here, 2 movements away from Caen, it's not looking good for them. So this probably is looking towards a German victory now, just like that. But find out after round 5, after the halfway point, if the Allies can get some good rolls and take Caen and get a beachhead on Omaha Beach. The pile is getting quite big now of the units lost in this game. A whole lot of them. Halfway through the game now, so this is probably starting to look like a Axis victory. I think, yeah, definitely looking like they're going to win. The Americans did take Cherbourg this turn, so that's all covered. But then, when you look down here, just at all those Germans, and you look at what the Allies have in reinforcements, and the Germans still have 3 tanks that can come on the board. Caen is under threat by the Germans every single turn. British don't have much there. The Americans finally did take Omaha, but I think it will be a bit too late. The American fighters were strafing over here, just stopping those tanks again. And the British down here, stopping any reinforcements that come in, but Saint-Lô is looking pretty well defended. I think the Germans might start pushing up and holding the Allies along these territories there. Not much reinforcements coming in from the Allies this turn, 4 each, both having 2 infantry and artillery and a tank there. No planes were lost this time, the bombers just continued to do their thing, just taking out an infantry this turn. Overall it's been a very good game so far, still half of the game to go, but I think for most of us will be thinking that this game is already done, but still play it through to find out what happens right after this. It's the end of round 6 here in the Down Under Bunker in this D-Day gameplay, and the Germans are now absolutely pulling in front. There is no doubt about it whatsoever. The Allies now the Americans just bring down their stuff from Cherbourg, and it's just 1 Solitude blockhouse left that will go very shortly. The Allies have now run out of reinforcements, with these being the last ones. As you can see, nothing left. Nothing apart from just 1 tiny artillery for the Germans. So reinforcements are pretty much out, and usually by then you can tell who's going to win by amount of pieces on the board and amount of tanks on the board. So the Germans having 13 tanks on the board currently, which is a ridiculous amount for this late in the game. And the combined total of the Americans and British is 7. So the Germans will capitalise on that. They have a lot of exposed artillery and an exposed tank there, that the Germans could just push into, hold up for a round or two, and then they can't do anything. The British over here just keep on going into Caen and just can't get a foothold. The Americans continue to strafe here, but I think the Germans have had enough of that, and they'll come and bring their tanks into Caen. The British lost another fighter this round. Haven't had great success with planes and them rolling ones. Americans still have all of their planes, so they'll continue to do some damage. The bombers didn't have good luck today, or this round either. Well, that's pretty much it. There's just less and less units on the board now, especially that reinforcements are stopping. So, find out what happens after round 7 now. Only 4 rounds left in the game. Right after this. With 3 turns left in the game, this is the pile of units that have gone. There's so many units in there, and we'll see why. So the Americans just leaving their guy in Cherbourg to make sure they keep that. Bringing down more units from there, and just putting stacks of infantry there in case that they might have survived there and did an all-out attack on Saint-Lô to maybe take it. Over here, the Germans have now brought all of their tanks that they can into Caen, and they had 7 tanks there, and now there's only 5. So the British could actually take Caen, but there will be damage done to them in the process, with all of those defending at 3, and the British having 0 reinforcements. But that will probably take 2 turns, and by then there will only be 1 turn left in the game, and I don't think Saint-Lô will fall. The only way that I can see that the Americans and British win is if they somehow take that out, and then push into Saint-Lô, get some remarkable rolls, and then win the game from there. But I don't think that is very likely. The Americans lost their first fighter in continuing to put units there, but they did do some damage to some infantry and artillery moving across to Caen. So that's all from round 7, with 3 rounds left in the game. Find out what happens right after this. Well, here's possibly the dice roll of the game that has sealed the deal for the Germans. Halfway through the round, and over here the Americans came in and maybe just thinking about potentially getting 6 hits, you never know. So they get, I think, 2 hits, but then look at that roll that the Germans get back. 6 out of 6 hits. And that will probably they'll probably end the game for the Americans, but we'll keep on playing to see what the end of this round. Well, with this pile growing in numbers, the length of a round shortens dramatically. I think that round was probably around 5 minutes long, and if the game was like that every round, it would only last about 50 minutes. Anyway, moving on. The Germans have had amazing rolls again in Caen, absolutely destroying the British there. With only 3 British infantry left and a tank, I think the Germans will probably hold on to that as well. Obviously after that devastating roll, the Germans have taken out all those tanks, leaving only 1 Allied tank on the board, which will probably get destroyed very shortly. The Americans did make a little attack into there. The Germans took out an infantry that was just 1 lone infantry that was there, but there is just no reinforcements coming, which means no help and probably no victory for the Allies today. There were no planes lost this round. They were strafing Saint-Lô, as I'm sure you saw. That's about it from this round. Not much to report, but we'll see you after round 9, and the Germans might be able to wipe out every single unit apart from that one guy in Cherbourg. Well, there's no doubt about it. The Axis are going to win. but with still one round left, I thought we might play it through. I might play it through on camera, just for a little fun. So well, previous round, not much happened, lots of distraction. Sintlo is now very well protected. Khan will probably fall, but that's about it. The British and Americans losing lots of stuff. Yeah, a fighter each. Okay, moving on. First card, of course, Fighter Patrol. Where should we put the fighters? Well, let's put the American ones in Sintlo, just because we can, and same with the British one. Next card is Anti-Aircraft Guns Fire. So it's these three, the search roll. No hits, 6, 4 and 5. Moving on to the next card now, Bombers Strike. So I'll bring both of these bombers and let's just put them in Sintlo just for fun. So we'll have the white dice as the British and the black dice as the American bomber. Ah, there we go. So the white dice hits, so I think that was the British. So the Germans will lose a anti-aircraft gun or artillery. Aircraft guns fire back at bombers. So we've got these two here that are gonna fire back quickly. One hit, there we go. We'll take off the American bomber. Off it goes. Next card, Bombers Return. Only bomber now, just the one. Moving on again, the Allies move. Well, I don't think there is anything that can move apart from this guy in Shareable, but he won't move. So that's about it there. Allies attack and Axis defend. Well, let's start with Khan. So we've got 2 infantry at 1. Misses. And a tank at 3. Misses as well. And the tank defense at 3. The German hits with a 1. Taking off a British infantry there. In here, the Americans have 1 infantry at 1. Misses. And 3 artillery at 2. All misses as well, all 4s. The Germans have 4 at 2 back at them. All misses. Shooting blanks at the moment. On to the next card, the Axis move. The only things that can move are in there, and I think, well, they'll just stay there because they can. Next card, Axis attack, Allies defend. So over here we've got 4 at 2 attacking. Ooh, 2 hits. Nice. And 4 at 2 defending. 3 hits. There we go. Bit of fortune, but a bit too little, bit too late. So the Germans lose 3 artillery there. Now Khan, the last battle of the game. The German tank at 3. Hits. And the British infantry and tank at 2. They both miss. Oh dear. So it finishes with a tank versus tank in Khan. Lots of tanks in Sintlo as well. And the last card, Fighters Return. We'll just put those fighters up on the airstrip. And that is it. That is the end of the game. There's no turns left for the Allies, but if there were, they would definitely lose all their units. I think at the start the Allies were probably doing well, but then a few unfortunate die rolls didn't help, so the dead pile ended up looking like this. Obviously there's a lot of units in this game, and that's pretty much all of them. Maybe next time I'll play with the fortune and tactic cards, just to make it a little bit more interesting and see how that goes. Weren't many planes left in the end, just 1 bomber and 3 fighters. Lots of Germans tanks still for this stage of the game, 4 and 3 artillery, compared to the Americans 1 infantry, 2 artillery and the British 1 tank. Well, thanks very much for watching everyone, and I hope to see you next time. Down Under Blanca signing off.